Okay, so first thing you're gonna do for this little practice is you're gonna download these two images. So to download it, click on the image and then you're gonna hit download. And that's just gonna pop right into our download folder. We'll click on the second image. And my apologies, this is not like the most high-res image. I've been using it on and off and I like somehow degraded the quality along the way, but it's okay because it's just a little practice. All right, so we're aiming to take our coffee cup and we're gonna put our galaxy inside. We're gonna replace the coffee. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up Photoshop. And I think I already have Photoshop open. You might need to open it up. So yeah, so this is what we're creating in the end. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up. I'm gonna start by opening a new piece of paper because you should always get in the habit of starting your own canvas. Remember, you want to use at least 8 by 10 at 300. That means that it can print like good quality at an 8 by 10 inch document, which means it will fit on a piece of paper. That is like the minimum, right? That's the minimum. We really want even bigger documents. So some other good sizes are like 16 by 20. That's the same aspect ratio, right? 8 doubled is 16, 10 doubled is 20. So 16 by 20, 12 by 19, that's another common size, 11 by 17 if you want it like slightly longer, 11 by 14, etc. Okay, those are all good sizes at 300 resolution. I think people get always a little like confused because if you look at this in pixels, oh, I guess it's here. I'll make it 8 by 10 at 300. Oh, and actually I want it horizontal, so you can select that when you're creating the document, but I'm just gonna go ahead and rotate it. Image size. So if I change this to pixels, it sounds like it's so many pixels, 3000 by 2400, but it's really just 8 by 10 inches. So I always like to look at everything in inches because that is something that's easier for me to wrap my mind around than pixels. You might be different. All right, so here's my document. I'm gonna go ahead and open up my mug. That'll be my bottom image. So I'll just go ahead and open that up. There in my download folder. So downloads, as you can see, I've done this a few times. All right, and then to get this onto the other document, I can either like click and drag. I also like doing old school, Control A, Control C. So Control A is select all, Control C is copy, and then Control V is paste, Control T is transform. So I can move this around wherever I want, select how I want this cropped, etc. I'm gonna put that right there and hit enter. Okay, now I'm done with my coffee cup. I can close it. I'm gonna go ahead and open up my galaxy now. And same thing, to select the whole thing, select all is Control A, and Control C is copy, and Control V is paste. All right, I'm gonna turn this layer off for right now because I need to get this image into my coffee cup. So, which it's not working right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off and I'm gonna go back to my coffee cup layer down here. All right, there's a few different ways I can select this. One, probably the easiest is to use the elliptical marquee tool because this is like an oval, right? So I can go here, my second tool down, the rectangular marquee, stored underneath of it, if I click and hold, is the elliptical marquee. Now, these tools, I don't know why you can't like modify the selection when you're on it. It's kind of annoying because you'll see if you click and drag. I mean, I remember the first time I used this tool, I thought, oh, I just have to like get it perfect like the first time. You don't. You can transform the selection, so just get it, you know, pretty good. Get it good enough, and then you're gonna go up here to select transform selection. I don't know why it's not like built into the selection tool that you can transform it. And I could be wrong, maybe there's an easier way to do it, but select transform selection. Okay, and then you can scale this up. And again, Photoshop, to kind of stretch something disproportionate, you know, not in proportion, you need to hold shift. So I'm holding shift and I'm just going to each edge and I'm lining this up. And there we go. And that's a pretty good selection. I think that's pretty decent, right? And then I'll hit enter when I like it. I'm gonna go up here to select and mask. When you're making your selections, you wanna go up to select and mask to further refine your selection, or just to even take a look at what you have selected. So I'm gonna click up here, select and mask. And it's gonna take a moment. And you can see that it opens this panel over here on the right. You might have, I don't know if you've played with this before or not, but the first little box is view mode. So there's all these different, this is like, you know, the normal view mode, the marching ants is what they call it. The red, I can see, you know, really what I have selected here. So there's all just different ways of viewing the selection. If you have an image with a lot of red, the overlay is not as useful. But most of the time, I think this red view is pretty useful. Onion skin, that like kind of drops the transparency a little bit. That's another useful one. And sometimes just to see, let me see if I can zoom in. I can really zoom in, and this black and white one is also helpful as well. All right, so this is a pretty clear-cut selection because I made it with my elliptical marquee tool, so it's, you know, perfectly smooth. So I don't need to do any of these things down here like smoothing. I can try clicking the smart radius, see what Photoshop does, see if it makes my selection look better. Oh, I think it's kind of lagging. Oh no, I'm frozen. Let me just let it think for a moment. There we go. So you can try this smart radius if you want. There's also the smoothing. I don't need to do that because it's a perfectly smooth selection because I use this elliptical marquee tool. There's feathering. So like, let's say I wanted to feather all my edges, I would feather them. If I want to shift everything a little bit larger, I would shift edge this direction. If I want to make my selection everything smaller, like just, you know, a hairline inside, I would go to the left. I think I'm happy with my selection though, so I'm going to zero it out. Maybe I'll just add a little bit of feathering to the edges. Okay, and then the last portion, it's output settings. I don't know why it's hidden here, but you might have to open it. It's this little caret down, output settings. And you can either say output to selection, new layer with layer mask, etc. Okay, new layer with layer mask is pretty useful. So I'll do that. And you can see what it's done is it's cut out this portion. And then I can turn this back on. So you can see that now I have this layer independent, right? I have this layer right here that I can move around. And I've got this layer as well. So I've broken it up into two different pieces. Okay, once I have this broken into two pieces, I'm going to turn my galaxy back on. I'm going to Control T my galaxy. And you know what? I'll just do it like halfway to show you. So I'm Control T my galaxy, and then I'm going to clip it into this shape below. So I'm going to just right click, say create clipping mask, and you're going to see it's going to insert this image into the layer below, whatever's on that layer below, which happens to be that cutout. You can see I need to Control T this. The reason I didn't Control T it the whole way is I just want you to see that afterwards, you can still move this around and it still is contained inside here because it is clipping itself to this shape below. So I'll go ahead and finish this up, make this the right size, hit enter, and there we go. I now have my galaxy in my cup. Okay, I'll go ahead and do this again with another tool. So I did my elliptical marquee that time. I'm going to show you, you can also do with quick selection, same thing. So I've got my coffee cup here. My quick selection, remember it works with the brackets on your keyboard with the brush. You can add to your selection, subtract from your selection. You can even change your brush, etc. I'm just going to leave it on the hard brush. I'm clicking around to select. Photoshop picked up the edge of the coffee cup, which I don't want. So I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard, or I can hit the minus to subtract from my selection. I think the easiest is just hold Alt on your keyboard. And I'm clicking away. I don't want these areas. Okay, and I think I need to zoom in a little bit. And this area is a little bit rough right here. All right, and that looks much better. I'm gonna go up here to select and mask, and then I can further refine. And you'll see that because this wasn't like a perfect, you know, oval, that some of these smoothing tools will work. You'll see how they work. I'm gonna go ahead and show you on the black and white view. You can see how it's kind of jaggedy right here. I can try hitting this smart radius, see if Photoshop can, you know, just do it itself, kind of figure out what I wanted selected. I can also smooth it, so I'm going to turn my smoothing up. And it takes a moment, but you can see it's looking a little bit less jaggedy. I'm going to change my contrast up. Just play with these sliders. Whoopsies. Let's turn that down. Come back, image. There we go. All right, shift edge. Let me just show you. This would make my selection larger if I go this direction, and then this would make it smaller. Did you see it kind of like went inside? It's not drastic. I'm going to zero that out because I don't need that. Decontaminate colors can be useful sometimes, but I think I'm happy with my selection. I'm going to leave it. Oh, I do want to feather it though. I'm going to feather this so you can see. I think the black and white you can really see. Do you see that's? Let me make it really drastic for the projector. Oh, okay, if I feather it that much. There we go. So you can see, take a look up here. This is the feathering. Okay, and it doesn't matter what view you're on. I'll go ahead and, it needs to like think for a second. There we go. So probably a little bit of feathering is nice. I can change my view back to overlay. It doesn't matter. These are just different ways of viewing this exact same thing, my selection. All right, and then again, I can go to output 2, new layer with layer mask, or I could just say selection. I could just keep it as a selection. If I have it as a selection, I'll just copy paste, Control C, Control V, and I've made myself a layer. So I'm doing this slightly differently, but you'll see the end result is going to be the exact same thing. Control A, Control C, Control V. Oopsies, it didn't select my galaxy. Let me go back. All right, select, deselect. All right, Control A, Control C, Control V, there we go, Control T. All right, I'm gonna size that, make it bigger. And then I'm going to right click, create clipping mask, and then that's where it's gonna insert inside. Okay, I can also use my clipping mask to apply like colors to specific regions. So let's say I wanted to do like a little shadow or highlight on here. I could just create a new layer. I can use let's go for like a highlight. Maybe I wanna add some I want it to be a little bit brighter on this side of the cup. That's like way too, that's way too much. That's extreme. So I'm gonna go soft on my hardness, low opacity. All right, so maybe I wanna lighten up this side of the coffee cup, and then maybe on this side, I want to darken it. So I'll do my lightening first. It's coming outside of my coffee cup. That looks terrible, right? I could, try and be really careful and just draw right along here. But even then, you can see it's kind of bleeding out the edge. So right click, create clipping mask, and it's gonna insert that into the shape below. Okay, and I will maybe use one of these overlay, there we go. So I brightened up just this one little area. I can also do this with a shadow. I can say plus, I'll do my dark brush. Maybe over on this edge, I want it to be like a little bit darker on this side. And same thing, it's bleeding out of my cup. That doesn't look good. Right click, create clipping mask. And now it's contained just inside there. I can still use my blend modes if I want, multiply, whatever. I can still move this around too. Let's say that I'm like, oh, that's good, but it's a little bit too close. I can take this layer, Control T, and I can move it so it's not so close to the edge, or I can move it this way. So I can still move this around. So the clipping mask is so useful. So you can see that's how you're gonna insert one image into another. If I go back again to my little image here, so I did my landscape inside, and then I used some PNGs. I just got some PNGs for my clouds, and boom, you could like cut out some birds, and you can see how this is like a 30-minute, composite image together. All right, so clipping mask, very powerful thing. You can apply textures to colors. Let me just show, I'll turn off this mug completely and just show you maybe with some new layers. So let's say I have my brush stroke here. Let me get a fancy brush. Let's see, let me find, here we go. Here's a fun one. All right, and make my brush bigger. So let's say I've got my brush stroke here. Let me get a different one. Let's try this. All right. So I've got a brush stroke that I've done here, right? So I just want you to see that this works for digital painting as well. Here's some brush strokes I've made. I can clip into these as well. So I'm going to take my galaxy now, Control A, Control C. All right, Control V to paste, Control T to transform. Zoom out. And now I'm gonna clip this into the layer below. Right click, create clipping mask. And boom, there it is in this brush stroke. So you can see how you can add textures to things. You know, I can also low opacity it. So maybe I just want like a little hint of the texture, but I still want to see my color below. Right, so let's pretend that this was like a color. Let me give it a color overlay. Color overlay. Let's pretend like this image was, I don't know, orange. Oh, it doesn't work with my color overlay. Okay, let me turn this off for a second. I'm gonna rasterize this. I'm gonna pretend like I just drew this as yellow. You can see I can add this and I can have it on 100% opacity, right? But I can also turn my opacity down and get some of that yellow back in there. I can use one of my blend modes. So very powerful, also useful for digital painting. You can see how you can add texture to the lines that you're making, etc. Okay? So that was super long on clipping masks. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this and then I'll post this for you.